only way to make a country powerful and great. This historic trend will continue. Already, I've secured a record-breaking $18 trillion of investment into the United States, which means jobs, wage increases, growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us. But not anymore. Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs. And that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen. AI, automobiles, we're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There's never, frankly, been anything like it. One year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail. Totally fail. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year. And next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time. Because of tariffs, along with the just passed one big beautiful bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas. So Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helps us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations, everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. What a difference a year makes. In addition, I'm doing what no politician of either party has ever done, standing up to the special interests to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies, foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%. In other words, your drug costs will be plummeting downward. And I use the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction. They stopped ripping us off, and it began as of 4 days ago. There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called Most Favored Nation. And no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, TrumpRx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you. So they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower cost. It will be far better health insurance. The current Unaffordable Care Act was created to make insurance companies rich. It was bad health care at much too high a cost. And you see that now in the steep increase in premiums being demanded by the Democrats, and they are demanding those increases. And it's their fault. It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it. Again, I want the money to go directly to the people so you can buy your own health care. You get much better health care at a much lower price. The only losers will be insurance companies that have gotten rich in the Democrat Party, which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies. They will not be happy, but that's okay with me because you, the people, are finally going to be getting great health care at a lower cost. Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden, and the typical family lost $5,000 to $10,000 in higher energy costs. Think of that, $5,000 to $10,000 you lost. On day one, I declared a national energy emergency. Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon. And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants. A record, and it's a record that won't be beaten by practically, I would say, by anybody. Or certainly not very soon. Prices on electricity and everything else will fall dramatically. The Democrat inflation disaster, again, the worst in the history of our country, also robbed millions of Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream. The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see the numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower interest rates by a lot, and mortgage payments will be coming down even further. Early the new year, and you will see this in the new year, I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens. 100%. In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation. Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. We're going to put an end to it for so long as before my election. The vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function. But not anymore, and you see that every day. Not anymore. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected. And our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
C-SPAN's Washington Journal, our live forum inviting you to discuss the latest issues in government, politics, and public policy from Washington, D.C. and across the country. Coming up Thursday morning, we'll discuss the vote on the GOP health care plan and President Trump's address to the nation with Republican New York Congressman Mike Lawler, a member of the House Financial Services Committee. And then Democratic Minnesota Congresswoman Betty McCollum, a member of the House Appropriations Committee, on this week's vote on the future of ACA subsidies and President Trump's address to the nation. Also, Republican Nebraska Congressman Mike Flood, a member of the Financial Services Committee and chair of the Republican Main Street Caucus, on President Trump's year-end speech and votes in the House on the House Republican leadership's health care plan. C-SPAN's Washington Journal. Join the conversation live at 7 Eastern Thursday morning on C-SPAN, C-SPAN Now, our free mobile app, or online at cspan.org.
Middle and high school students join C-SPAN as we celebrate America's 250th anniversary during our 2026 C-SPAN Student Cam video documentary competition. This year's theme is Exploring the American Story through the Declaration of Independence. We're asking students to create a 5 to 6 minute documentary that answers one of two questions. What's the Declaration's influence on a key moment from America's 250-year history? Or how have its values touched on a contemporary issue that's impacting you or your community? We encourage all students to participate, regardless of prior filmmaking experience. Consider interviewing topical experts and explore a variety of viewpoints around your chosen issue. Students should also include clips of related C-SPAN footage, which are easy to download on our website, studentcam.org. C-SPAN Student Cam Competition awards $100,000 in total cash prizes to students and teachers, and $5,000 for the grand prize winner. Entries must be received before January 20th, 2026. For competition rules, tips,
Hey there, welcome to Sort of the James Show, News Talk 829.33 FM WBAP. I'm sort of your host, James Parker. I know usually it's Joe Pags at this time, but we just had the president address the nation, and in order to give you the news as it happens, we had to sort of cut in and call an audible here. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to be with you until midnight, but Donald Trump addresses the nation. There's a lot of speculation leading up to this. Now we know what it was all about. I recorded the whole thing, and we are going to go through it bit by bit. How long was this thing? 18 minutes, 17 seconds. So we'll probably spend longer than that talking about it to cover a whole lot of ground. Joining me for the initial coverage of the show is our friend from the Dallas Express, Chris Putnam. Somehow Chris Putnam got the first pair of headphones we've ever used at WBAP. Where did these headphones come from? I realized you didn't bring some, and we had to get you some. And Garrett went and got you like the headphones that Tom Hanks was wearing in Apollo 13, I think. Do they sound okay? Is it working? Are those headphones made of wood? Okay. That's what they look like, right? You look like Johnny B. Venus flytrap. We'll work on that. So what we have right now is Donald Trump addressing the nation. And what I really thought, and I was so wrong, so let's just go ahead and get this out. I'll bleed in front of you. I thought this was going to be him declaring war on Venezuela, or announcing, like, maybe not officially war, but we're going to land some troops, or we have some military action, or there was something going on that was going to deal with either overthrowing Maduro or putting the screws on him. And it looks like the speculation that we talked about on the James Show today was wrong. Your thoughts, Chris? Well, there was, more of a look back in this message. And now that we have seen the whole 18 minutes of it, it seems like he wasn't really preparing us for something big that he was about to do. It seems more like him trying to get the message out on, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MS, what are they calling it now? MSNO. They're not going to report on the fact that his economy is doing good, that the stock market's at all-time highs, that he's making all these peace deals, that some prices are down somewhere, that wages are up higher than they used to be, that this is a hot, economy. And I think this was just him trying to steer the message and not really in one direction. So let's just start with the first 3 minutes here, because I was dropping notes in the audio file when I was recording it. The first 3 minutes was him just slagging Biden, and there's room for criticism. No one's perfect, and so he was talking about all the things he did wrong. And then the last 15 minutes was all positive about what he's been doing. So that's the balance there. He didn't spend a whole lot of time slagging Biden. He did start with that, but the last 15 minutes was just affirmative things about what he's done in the last 10 months. So I think overwhelmingly a positive speech, which I wasn't necessarily expecting either. All right, first topic he covered when he got off of beating on Biden was immigration.
And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's worth revisiting again, Chris. I remember hearing that, well, we have this legislation that the Republicans aren't voting for, and we could just close the border if only they would vote for this legislation. Turned out that wasn't the necessary action to take. Well, no, I like that take because in the immediate sense, the Trump immigration, the Republican immigration reforms have worked. But you're right. If none of this is codified by Congress, then when Trump's out of office in 3 years, what are we just going to reopen the floodgates again? So the second topic he went to was education.
We have broken the grip of sinister woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs.
I mean, is it? Because I think your previous criticism applies here too. Yeah, it'll be subdued while he's in office, but the second he's out of office, the old way of doing things is going to come back. Well, and without addressing this, then all of what Doge did to sort of whittle down the Department of Education will be lost. And this is what I find disappointing about Republicans. Ronald Reagan wanted to get rid of the Department of Education. It only came to existence under Carter. It was in the contract with America in the 90s. And now Republicans, y'all don't want to end the Department of Education. It would solve a lot of these problems. But I don't even see a bill or a proposal or a backing or even a subplot in the conversation about it, Chris. All right, we'll continue with coverage of the Trump address to the nation that just happened. If you have any additions, what did you take away from the speech? 800-288-9227, 9227. Still coming up, you're going to hear Trump's take on military action and peace around the world. Your prices, are they going up or down? Your wages, are they going up or down? And the economy. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the Sort of James Show. I'm your sort of host, James Parker. And we're butting into the Joe Pags time slot this evening because Trump just gave an address to the nation. And so we thought, hey, this just happened. Let's do something to break it down while news is happening in real time. And that's what we're doing today. And so joining me, giving me assist here for the first hour is Chris Putnam, our friend from the Dallas Express, dallasexpress.com. And I guess there's also an app version. See how I got that in there, Chris, with your newly redesigned app. But, we've covered the basics. He did an intro, which was mostly just bashing Biden for about 3 minutes. But then it's all solid meat from the last 15 minutes. It's just topic after topic after topic. He seemed to stay on the script and not chase rabbits. So we got a lot to talk about here. 800-288-9227 if you want to join the conversation. This is Trey in Duncanville. You're on WBAP.
Thank you for taking my call and wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas. I think overall Trump did a fantastic job. I think he's kind of set the underpinnings of where we are, and I think he's looking forward. And overall, I think he's the economy's going to be great. We just got to be patient. It just takes a while to turn it around.
Well, did you have any expectations going into the speech? You say he did a good job. I think Chris and I are both thrown off because I was expecting him to have some like active war against Venezuela or some big event that he was introducing to us. Instead, he was just kind of covering the issues of the day.
I wasn't expecting him announcing some kind of major military action. I was just kind of open to see what was going to happen, and I just think overall I'm very pleased and satisfied with him. I think we will know what shape the economy is come around 4th of July. I think that'll be the kind of the turning point. We will see.
Well, Trey, in Duncanville, do you think the people who aren't already pro-Trump got some of that positive message too?
I think so, but we're going to have to be patient. I think unfortunately, we just live in an instantaneous society of gratification. We expect, to have our bank account balance showed in front of us, have instant this, have instant that. And unfortunately, just too many people are way too impatient. And I think, like I said, I think we'll see within the next 6 months or so. And I think people will be pleasantly surprised. That's my feeling.
Chris, your response? Well, that's what you were saying on the break, is he failed to set appropriate expectations a year ago. So you feel like this was just a big reset? Well, he didn't feel like he had one specific message to get out. He was sort of rapid firing here because when I go through my notes over here, he talks about immigration, education, peace deals, prices, wages, economy, drug costs, TrumpRx.com, healthcare policy, energy policy, mortgage costs, border invasion, reverse migration, Somalians, Minnesota. That's a lot of topics. He didn't have a focus in this. Well, no, but I think this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to do a cut-through speech because MSNBC would never report all the positive stuff that he said about drug costs, about energy policy, about mortgages, about the border, about migration, about Somalians, Minnesota, all that. They'll never report that. This was a way for him to actually put that message in front of the MSNBC audience because they were carrying it live. I have no better explanation on what this was about other than him just trying to break through. All right. The next topic he covered was sort of this overlap of his military actions and peace deals and whatnot.
After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East.
All right, so none of that is news to you and me, but there's a lot of people out there who are hearing this for the first time. All right, still coming up on the Sort of James show. I'm going to continue with Chris Putnam. You sticking around for a few minutes? Yeah, I'd just like to guilt you on air so you can't say no. But we did have the new website announced today, TrumpRx.com. We'll dive into that next. If you have any comments, any reaction, anything to add to the discussion, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. And we will continue breaking down Trump's address to the nation next on Newstalk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, Merry Christmas, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the Sort of James Show. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I am sitting in the normal Joe Pags shift. For all you Joe Pags fans, give me a break, all right? I'm just trying to cover Trump's address to the nation, where I was thinking he had some message. He had some big thing he was going to tell us, because that's what happens so often. The president tells the networks, clear the deck. I've got to talk to the entire nation. It's so important. We're going to talk to them at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whenever it was, 8 o'clock. And, usually they get up there and they're like, well, we're going to be bombing Venezuela, or we're going to be invading Iraq, or we're going to be bombing Vietnam, or there's usually something to it. And this was a shotgun blast where he was covering 10 different topics over here. And I feel like this was just sort of a cut through the noise moment that he had. He's like, hey, listen, I just want to make sure the American people have a chance to know some of these things that I don't think is probably being reported on properly. And that's what I feel like. This was a big message correction moment, more so than him announcing one big giant act. Continuing with me, Chris Putnam, Dallas Express, dallasexpress.com. Let's go and jump back into the phones. Shane in Royce City, you're next up on WBAP.
Hey, Merry Christmas, guys.
Thanks, Shane.
Hey, so yeah, I just kind of consider this kind of like a end of the year review, much like an employee would give their employer. Just kind of a self-assessment, and then just a holiday message.
Isn't that what the State of the Union's for? Didn't he just do this in February, and he's going to do it again this coming February?
Well, maybe, yeah, I could see your point, but maybe it's just the end of the year message. I mean, it's first year back as president.
Well, we've done such a terrible job trying to influence and control the narrative. I was having a guy on from the Media Research Center, the people that run Newsbusters, and they did a poll, or they did a survey that showed only 24% of eligible voters knew that Charlie Kirk's assassin was a lefty. And so what else would it even be? Like, how uninformed could you possibly be? Apparently, a lot of people aren't getting the same information that you and I are getting, Shane. Chris?
I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, just look at it, the media and stuff like that. I mean, and even social media. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. Did I lose you guys?
No, we're here. Do you not hear Chris?
Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying I'm not surprised at all by that.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris. Definitely. Lie by omission, still a lie. And I recall in the first Trump term, CNN got called out because I didn't notice it. You didn't notice it, but somebody had noticed that 8 months into Trump's first term, CNN had never covered any of his addresses live. They did that one State of the Union or Address to the Nation or whatever. But other than that, they didn't ever go live. And when they were called out on it, they said, well, we need to be able to make sure the message he's getting out is true, because we don't want the American people to be misled, which what they're really saying is we don't want the American people to hear anything coming out of his mouth that we don't think is appropriate for them to hear. You know what? Go ahead and take a victory lap on that, because that's so cool. For those of y'all who don't know, Chris Putnam at the Dallas Express was in the White House press pool. And you still have a pass. You're just here right now at the American Air. It's pretty important, yeah. Well, we're the second most populous state. How many press people from Texas were in that room? Yeah. All right, let's jump back into the meat and bones of the speech today. He talked about price controls.
Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast.
So I worry about this because when we talk about inflation slowing down, that means prices aren't going to go up as fast. If people have the expectation that prices are going to go down from where they are on a nominal basis across the board, they're going to be really disappointed, Chris. Well, this is where I feel like a plague on both of your houses because neither party really wants to get spending under control. Neither one's even talking about balancing the budget. And until you do that, you're going to have to print money to fill in the gap, and there will constantly be inflation. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all bigger than defense. All right. We'll continue with Chris Putnam from Dallas Express. If you want to drop in your 2 cents and join the conversation, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Donald Trump addresses the economy in his speech to the nation at 8 o'clock. We're reviewing it here with you on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the Sort of James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. I'm your sort of host, James Parker, sitting in for the Joe Pags show. If you're new to me, I'm on weekdays 2 to 5. I know you're probably working then, or it doesn't fit in your schedule if you hadn't already heard of me. I do a podcast, so go check that out, and you can listen time shifted whenever you want. I have my buddy Chris Putnam sitting in with me from Dallas Express, DallasExpress.com. Thank you very much. And we're going over this Trump speech to the nation that he gave at 8 o'clock. And I got to tell you, Chris, this is what threw me off. I was expecting this was going to be a declaration of military action against Venezuela, because this was Trump now 2 weeks ago on December 3rd.
Every boat we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives.
That's right.
And if you look at our numbers, the drugs coming in through sea are down 91%. I'm surprised there's 9% here. I don't know who's doing the 9%, but it's down 91, and we're going to start very soon on land, and I'm sure you're thrilled to hear that.
See how he threw that in at the very end? We're going to start very soon on land. I'm sure you'll hear about that, because he knows the plans were already made, and that was 2 weeks ago, Chris. That's what I was expecting today. Let's continue that Venezuela conversation after we talk to Bill in Arlington. Bill, you're on WBAP with James Parker and Chris Putnam from Dallas Express.
Yes, how are y'all? I'm a longtime Republican activist. I was twice Trump delegate to the National Convention,
Cool.
And I know Chris well.
Oh,
I believe this is a tactical speech. Recent polls have shown Trump slipping amongst so-called independents. Most of those independents are what always put the Republican Party over the top. They are more populist in their orientation, and they don't like either party. They believe both parties lie, right?
that's
and
me.
So they get very frustrated. That's right. So the bottom line is this speech was red meat for those particular voters. He's trying to bring them back, and I think it's smart in that regard. I do quarrel with the president over some of the things he says regarding economics, especially when he talks about inflation. What he's saying there is just flat wrong.
Right.
Which surprised me because Donald Trump is a graduate of Wharton School with a degree in economics, which it just floors me,
Well, maybe the Wharton School taught him Keynesian economics, because that's what a Keynesian would say.
I have a degree in economics too, and I went to school in the same era, and I know that he was taught something different. It should have been taught. Look, the bottom line though is, in the big scheme of things, is that the inflation under Biden was nowhere as nearly as bad as it was under Jimmy Carter.
Agreed.
That's just a fact. And yes, he's made significant progress on inflation in his first term, and he will do it here in his second term, because the key fact here is deregulation of industry and lowering oil prices, and we are still continuing to make the same kind of progress in this term as he made in the first year of his first term, and eventually this will bring prices down.
Wait, because you're saying we're going to grow our way out of the deficit. Is that what you're saying?
We're still growing. See, that's just it. We're not in a slump. This is no recession. Now, the growth is not as fast as it needs to be. We need to bump this up above 3% to get up to 4%. But I think that with the deregulation policies and with the lower energy costs, that's going to drive things. It's not so much about the tax cuts, although the tax cuts are important, but we need more better tax policy in future bills coming up, and then we will really take off.
All right.
And we can have the kind of growth we had that was really fueled by the 1981. By the way, the 1981 tax cut, that was the biggest tax cut in history, bar none. It beats them all.
All right, Chris Putnam, Bill in Arlington says this was a tactical speech to address his slipping ratings, and I kind of get that general tenor too. All right, the next clip from Trump's speech to the nation at 8 o'clock today. This is the part where he talked about wages.
After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation.
Chris, do you think the average person out that when you look out that window, you think they're getting this message? Like Frisco. Period. That's wild. All right. He continued on his economic part of the speech by saying this is the hottest economy on planet Earth.
1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history.
All right. So are we the hottest economy on planet Earth? Well, they put so much regulation on their economies that the tech industry and the AI industry is not going there at all. Semiconductors, the chip makers, the AI with the data centers, they don't want to go to the EU because they've regulated that. And so now it's not that we're good, it's that we're the least dirty shirt in the laundry. Well, that's an economic theory metaphor that they use. The cleanest dirty shirt. You're on a business trip. You were expecting 5 days. You brought 5 shirts. It turns out you got extended to 6-7 days. Hey kids, I did the thing. I did the 6-7. But now you got to go back, and you don't have access to a washing machine, or you can't dry clean it that fast. So which one do you use? You can't wear a clean shirt, but you do wear the cleanest dirty shirt that you have. And so under that metaphor, yeah, America is the hottest country to invest in now. But my God, it could be so much better. Yeah, but it worries me because it means if some other country or some other region got their head out of their backside, economically speaking, we could easily not be the superpower of the world anymore. With all this could just go somewhere else if only someone else was better economically than we're doing. Fair enough. All right, that's Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. I highly recommend you check out DallasExpress.com or the Dallas Express app. It's the paper of record on the James Show. And we're breaking down Donald Trump's address to the nation that happened at 8 o'clock, but I recorded the whole thing, and we're just going through it and analyzing it bit by bit. Coming up next, he mentioned some military bonuses, and he didn't quite call them Christmas bonuses, but you'll hear details on that coming up next. If you have anything you want to add to the discussion, the lines are open, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. This is the Sort of James Show on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, Merry Christmas, fellow Texans. This is the Sort of James Show, question mark. I'm your host, James Sparker. Sitting in, I know you normally get Joe Pags right now. I'm the guy who does the afternoon show from 2 to 5 on WBAP weekdays. And they're bringing me in to do some special duty, some special coverage, because Donald Trump cleared the decks and addressed the nation tonight, covered a whole slew of topics. Also in studio, giving me an assist, our friend Chris Putnam from Dallas Express, dallasexpress.com. Thanks for hanging out. And I wanted to bring up this next little piece of meat that he threw out today. I had not heard of this before. He announced a Christmas bonus for soldiers.
Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend.
All right, Chris, what do you think of that? Well, I find it hard to criticize this because of all the things that we waste money on. When you look at the Constitution, there's actually the charge for the federal government to provide for the defense with an army, with a military. They're supposed to actually do that. So it bothers me a lot less if money's wasted to those ends than they are for things that aren't in the Constitution, like education and healthcare and all this other stuff that they're not supposed to be doing at all, Section 8 and food stamps and whatnot. Like, that's not even constitutional. So if you're wasting money on that, it's like a double sin to me. This is only like a half sin. I didn't sell him on that one, y'all. Oh, yeah. Well, wait till 2032 and Social Security fund runs out. That's going to be real fun. Dan in Rankin, you're on WBAP with James Parker and Chris Putnam.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I was listening to President Trump's speech on the way home. I'm driving an 18-wheeler, and I almost jumped out of my seat. I was so happy to hear that he was paying the soldiers. I got two family members, which my daughter and my son-in-law, were shout out to them in Utah, Kendall and Brian. Man, you do not know the struggles of a soldier. And tonight, I'm just so excited that, just a little bit will help them out. As a family, we saved a little bit to give them a little Christmas help because the struggle is real for a soldier. And they deserve it. They put in a lot of hard work, a lot of hours. You think they work from 9 to 5, but they don't. And they definitely deserve everything that they get. And I'm so happy that President Trump was able to facilitate this for them. And I'm just so happy tonight. And that's what I want to contribute.
Right. No more criticism of pinching pennies there. Thank you, Dan and Rankin. Appreciate you sharing that. So look, that's the one thing you run into when you criticize any payment going to anybody, but no one's as deserving as military members. We got criticized for wanting to pinch pennies when it came to food stamps during the shutdown or Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid. you can't make as good of a case for any of those programs as you can for military people getting the bonus. I've always wished that we lived in the country, since we are the richest country the world's ever known, where we were having conversations and hot debates on whether or not we're paying our soldiers too much. I want to get to the point to where we're having the conversations like, listen, you're not supposed to get rich going into the military. The military is not supposed to be someplace where you go and you walk away with thousands of dollars in the bank. Because in previous, civilizations, that kind of was a problem, or a good problem to have. And when you actually look at what some of these people make, like $28,000 a year, and in 2025, I mean, who the heck can live on that? So I mean, that kind of puts the Xmas bonus, the Christmas bonus for the soldiers, in a better light. All right, we all agree all the way around. Then let's go look at the cost of drugs that Donald Trump addressed. Yeah, I got a couple minutes here. This was in the speech in the address to the nation at 8 o'clock.
There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called Most Favored Nation, and no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now.
All right, so Most Favored Nation. Explain this. Do you have any in-depth analysis there? Okay, well, let me give you my shallow analysis then. Right, but these are all economic questions, and without knowing the nuance of the policy as it exists now, you can still address this by saying, if Canada is selling some drug for half the price that we pay for it here, then someone should just go to Canada, buy a whole truckload of it, bring it here, and sell it at a discount. The reason why they don't do that is, I'm assuming, without even having to look this up, it's safe to assume that there's some sort of barrier to that. There's some sort of reimportation ban, or some sort of customs fee or duty, or something is set up to prevent that from happening. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Your favorite drug, Viagra. I'm not kidding. But like antibiotics, like you can get amoxicillin over the counter there. You need a prescription here. You can get a Z-Pack. You're using the street name for Xanax? All right, Marilyn Monroe, calm down. I'll see you when you get back from Mexico. But no, that you're making a great point, though. Like if you wanted to get some of these drugs that are behind a prescription wall, you should be able to just go to Mexico, buy a giant diesel truck full of them, bring them back here, and sell them at a discount, and make money doing that. And that would solve the problem. There's a barrier to doing that. So without adjusting any other drug policy or drug company, if you just remove those barriers, which is in the purview of the federal government, that would do a lot to prevent the drug companies from having disparate prices across countries. Yeah, that pharmacy benefit managers. Coming up next, though, he introduced to the world today TrumpRx.com. You'll hear what that's all about. If you have any comments, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker, your host, along with my guest, Chris Putnam from Dallas Express. You're listening to News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome. You're listening to WBAP, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM. And this is not your normal program. You're expecting Joe Pags. Sorry, it's me, James Parker, the afternoon guy, but we thought it was an important occasion here. Donald Trump gave an address to the nation at 8 o'clock. It lasted a little under 20 minutes, and we're just breaking it down. I have my buddy Chris Putnam in here giving me a little assist from DallasExpress.com. I'm sure that they're writing about this right now for his media outlet. But a lot was covered, and thus far, we've already covered the talk about immigration, about education, about military, about peace deals, about prices, inflation, wages, the economy in general, and the military Christmas bonus, which he didn't call it a Christmas bonus, but this is a 1776 bonus. Quite obvious the symbolism he's trying to go for there. But this next part about drug costs going down, he mentioned lowering drug costs with different trade policy and most favored nation status. But here he mentions a new website. I never heard about this before, TrumpRx.com.
The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, TrumpRx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care.
All right, so I said that wrong. TrumpRx.gov, not .com, .gov. Chris, did you have any idea this was coming up? So that was a second new thing that wasn't on my radar. Number one, the Christmas bonus. Number two, TrumpRx.gov. Now, I'm kind of skeptical of this because when governments create websites to help, make healthcare more efficient, it hasn't gone so well in the past. Not good at all. So this isn't even a Republican idea. What's going on here? Well, it has to be from a PR slant because it's not from a point of like economic ideology just being put to paper. He's, I don't know, trying to curry favor or. All right, I'll let him continue from right there, him talking about healthcare.
I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you. So they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower cost. It will be far better health insurance. The current unaffordable.
What do you think about that? The idea that the money, these payments should go directly to people and not to health insurance companies. Well, I would like to point out how close his policy preferences are to the Democrats' wishes, to what they proposed, not just with, Obamacare, but some of these other things that he's talking about. These aren't Republican ideas. These aren't free market capitalist ideas. These are sort of quasi-socialist, sort of Democrat socialist, social safety net kind of ideas. And it really bugs me that he's going to still get treated like he's literally Hitler when he's really close to you guys that are calling him literally Hitler. Well, no, but the real frustrating part is here's a guy who spent almost his entire life, except for the last 15 years, as a Democrat. He comes out, he is constantly floating Democrat amenable policies out here, and he still gets called literally Hitler. They act like he's the polar opposite of what they believe. No, he's really close to the mainstream Democrat Party when it comes to some of these economic issues. Yeah. Well, here he is. Yeah, adopting half of their economic policies. They're still calling him literally Hitler. Well, it just really bothers me that he's portrayed in so many media outlets as some far right fringy guy, and this is about as moderate milk toast centrist as you could possibly find in the modern era. Totally agree. All right, this is Chris Putnam from Dallas Express. You can find his website, dallasexpress.com, or his app. I'm James Parker. Now, you normally find me weekdays on WBAP hosting the afternoon show from 2 to 5. If you usually don't get to listen to me and you like what you hear now, go check out the podcast. I put a bunch of good stuff up there. Wherever you already listen to podcasts, I don't care. You're supposed to go to WBAP.com or the WBAP app. But if you go to Spotify or the little podcast app on your iPhone, I pop up there too. We just prefer for you to go through our channels, Secret of the Pros there. But we're going to continue breaking down the Donald Trump address to the nation because there was a lot of issues covered and still on the table that we haven't covered yet. Is he covered mortgage costs, and then he covered a lot of immigration to sort of finish off the speech. If you have any comments, any additions to the conversations, your takeaways, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, good evening, fellow Texans. It's sort of the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I say that with a question mark around it because normally it's Joe Pags, and the James Show is this special time in the WBAP calendar that's reserved for weekdays from 2 to 5 in the afternoons. But we're doing extra duty today because Donald Trump addressed the nation at 8 o'clock, covered a lot of issues that actually affect you, and we thought we'd spend the extra effort to break it down for you tonight. Joining me, Chris Putnam, continuing from DallasExpress.com. And I'm still cracking up at the headphones. He's got the World War II surplus headphones. He looks like he's Radar in MASH. I think that we nailed down where we got it from. I was Googling it earlier. I think your headphones look like Radar from MASH. Where did we even get those? Like, he could get hit with a bullet and his headphones wouldn't even stop working. Like, it would just absorb the bullet because it's like, what is that even made of? Anyway, it cracks me up. But back to business here. Donald Trump addressing the nation. There was a little bit of a head fake for me. I predicted, and very wrongly so, on the James Show this afternoon. I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong. It might be rare for you to hear from a talk radio host. I don't mind. It happens all the time. I thought he was going to announce some military strike against Venezuela. I thought he was going to announce, well, the invasion has begun, the amphibious landing has begun, or whatever. And we were about to see some awesome live footage of Caracas with random explosions. But no, actually, this seemed to be more of just a PR swing. And he did sort of a happy skip through the meadow of the issues. And there was a lot of meat on the bone. It was sort of a campaign rally, Biden bashing opening. And after the first 3 minutes, he just looked forward and gave you issue by issue where he stands on all this stuff. So immigration, education, military, prices, wages, economics, the military Christmas bonus that he announced, $1,776, $1776. Very clever. He talked about the cost of drugs. He talked about TrumpRx.gov. More about healthcare policy. And so now that brings us all the way up to the part where we talked about mortgage costs. Now, mortgage costs is a tricky issue here because when you get too much meddling in the mortgage business, you end up with the 2008 financial crisis. So I think maybe have we learned our lesson there? I don't know. Let's see what he said earlier tonight.
The Democrat inflation disaster, again, the worst in the history of our country, also robbed millions of Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream. The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see. The numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve.
All right, so let's talk about what he just mentioned there, because a lot of that I don't think was necessarily Biden's fault. We had interest rates from the Federal Reserve crushed at zero for a decade. Yeah, I guess kind of. Well, it ticked up before the financial crisis in 2008. Anyway, let's not nitpick that. For at least a decade, they've been crushed. Okay. Yeah, so we're back in agreement. So I got my last mortgage at the very end of 2021, and it's 2.95%. And I wouldn't be surprised if we never see that again. But that was not a real world mortgage scenario. And if you're aspiring to think that that's the norm for how mortgages work, that was just sort of a one-time anomaly, and you can't really judge based off of that. So the baseline that Biden was coming off of when they started to raise the interest rates back to something, who's to say what normal is, but historically speaking, normal. And so mortgage rates necessarily went up with it. How is he really going to get mortgage rates down if he doesn't slam the rates to 0%, which I think would be a bad idea? Right. Well, I think the thing that's missing from Donald Trump's address on the mortgage rates is he doesn't have that strong ideological economic backing, like a Ronald Reagan, or I love when you bring up Ross Perot. I mean, he's a political hero in my mind, because he would probably say something I would feel more comfortable with. He would probably say, if you want housing to be more affordable, build more houses. And if you want to build more houses, then we really need to take off all the regulations and oversight and environmental reports or whatever that are slowing that down. We also need to take off all the chains that comes with reporting and what does and doesn't go on your credit score and all the nitpicking that government's done with that. And there's 10 other things I can get to lower the cost of someone getting into a home before I go gripe at the Federal Reserve for not slamming the rates back down to zero. We've never gotten that level of nuance from Donald Trump, but we never get that level of nuance from any politician except for like a Rand Paul or a Thomas Massie. Oh man, you know what? That is a huge point, and that's kind of tough because that's something that's completely out of the hands of anybody in DC. I'm glad it is. I'm glad these things are controlled at a more local level. But the cost of building a home where I'm sitting right now here in Dallas versus over in Buck Tussle, where I live, incredibly different. My brother-in-law is a general contractor. He builds houses, and I get in this argument with my father-in-law, how we need regulations, we need building codes, or people are just going to build shoddy houses. Well, out in the middle of nowhere where we don't have building codes and all these regulations, people build houses and they don't crumble, they don't fall down, they do just fine. You know what they are though? A lot cheaper. Yeah, let's relax the rules so everyone can get a mortgage. Well, when everyone gets a mortgage, can everybody pay it back? Maybe there was a reason why banks weren't loaning all these people money, and we found out the hard way. Name drop. Yeah. So coming up next on the James Show. Sorry to cut you off. I just noticed we're out of time. Donald Trump, in his address to the nation, talked about immigration, and he spent quite a bit of time on here. And I really have very little criticism coming up for this next segment. I think you're going to like it, Chris. I think you're going to like it, guy listening. If you have anything to add to the conversation, 800-288-9227. We'd love to chat with you. 800-288-9227. We're talking about Trump's address to the nation on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, Merry Christmas, fellow Texans. It's the Sort of James Show on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I'm your sort of host, James Parker. Donald Trump addressed the nation at 8 o'clock. He was actually on time for like the first time in media politics history. A presidential address to the nation started on time. All of these things are late. The press conferences, all of it. They're always late. This one was actually on time. He spent about 20 minutes. And after about 3 minutes of running down Joe Biden, it was all content after that. A good 15, 16 minutes where he just went issue by issue. And since he didn't really have the focus on one central action here, I feel like this was sort of a PR move where he's covering this wide range of topics. A lot of this is information he would like for the American people to hear that they're never going to hear from some of these other channels that it was on. Of course, you'll hear it on WBAP. You'll hear it on Fox News. But a lot of what he was saying in this 18, 19 minutes over here, you've heard 1,000 times. It was heard for the first time by the listeners and viewers of CNN and MSNBC and ABC and CBS and NBC. And if that was the point, I think he might have done the trick. I think he might have actually helped himself out in what was his charge. I was just kind of caught off guard because I was expecting, I don't know, war against Venezuela or something, some big main issue, but there wasn't one. Chris Putnam sitting in with us from Dallas Express. Thank you very much for sitting in with us. I want to run to the phones here. Elvis in Memphis, really? Elvis in Memphis? You're on WBAP. I'm skeptical that this is really Elvis in Memphis. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, Trump is the best president we've ever had. Giving our military a Christmas bonus is long overdue. The young man concerned about the deficit, the budget, nobody in Washington cares. They're not going to cut anything, ever.
Well, we should care.
They're not going to do anything. Neither side will ever cut it. This Ross Perot stuff, I've been hearing that 30 years.
That's all right.
Never cut anything.
Well, actually, on a long enough time scale, they will cut something. It just won't be a plan of their choosing. They'll be forced. All countries are forced to make cuts at some point. You can't just keep this going on. And what that looks like is the Soviet Union in 1991. They couldn't pay their bills. They couldn't inflate their currency anymore. They couldn't borrow any money from anyone else. They couldn't black market their way out of it. They had an economic collapse. They weren't invaded by a foreign army. They weren't bombed into submission. There wasn't a blockade. They had an economic collapse. That's what we're headed for. That's what happened to Spain before the Spanish Armada. That's why their armada sucked. They couldn't afford a new one. That's what happened to the British Empire. That's what happened to the Roman Empire. We're just making the same mistakes that all successful civilizations have made on a long enough time scale.
They will never cut anything, either side, Republican or Democrat.
Well,
It'll never happen.
Then stop voting for them.
There's nobody to vote for except Trump. They're crooks. They're scum.
That's what both sides of the aisle said before the Republican Party was formed in the 1850s. That's what they said before.
1850s. What the hell are you talking about? The 1850s.
That was the last time we.
Here,
let me explain myself because I think I'm making a fantastic point here, Chris. Is we had the two-party system that was the Democrats and the Whigs, and the Whigs were not sufficiently anti-slavery enough. That side of the aisle wanted to abolish slavery, and they wanted to trim around the edges, and we're against slavery, but we don't want to rock the boat. And finally, one day, the right side of the political spectrum in America had enough. They tossed out the Whigs, and in just a painful 8-year process, the Republicans took their place and actually got it done. So I'm hopeful that will happen. If that doesn't happen, then it's economic collapse, just like Argentina does every 30 years or all those other empires I mentioned. Go ahead, Chris. Well, you have two options. Either you can voluntarily cut spending or you can just drive the economy off a cliff and you can have a collapse. And there will be spending cuts at that point. After we collapse, you're not going to be getting your Social Security check. You're not going to be getting your food stamps. You're not going to be getting your Section 8 vouchers. When there's a collapse, the total, actual, real spending cuts will happen. And I would just rather do it while we have some sort of agency and control over what the cuts are going to look like versus your hand being forced on the collapse level. Yeah, 38. But we are having a hard time cutting Elmo from the budget. I'm like, look at all the wailing and gnashing of teeth over cutting NPR and PBS, and you think we're ever going to get to Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid? Well, look, here's where I get so pessimistic I'm optimistic, because I'm like, fine, don't listen to me on Social Security. Just wait about 6-7 years. Oh, I did it again. I did the thing. But the Social Security Trust Fund they'll admit that it's going to go bankrupt in 2033, but that number always moves up. So by the time we get there, it may be just like 5 years left. And then y'all can all come back and revisit who was right and who was wrong in 2025. I don't think we'll ever get credit for that, though. All right. Well, can they just kick it down the road until I pass away and just let my kids and grandkids deal with the dumpster fire that we're leaving behind? Coming up next, you'll hear Trump's comments on immigration and, yes, reverse migration. 800-288-9227 if you want to jump in on the conversation. Your reaction to Donald Trump's address to the nation tonight would be welcome. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker with Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. This is News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Dan Bongino. I'm kidding. It's James Parker sitting in the Joe Pags slot on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Did you hear that there was some Dan Bongino news? Chris Putnam from Dallas Express, did you hear there was Dan Bongino news? Oh, I was going to tell everybody, but you go ahead and step on it. That's cool. Yeah, he said he's going to give it up. He said he's going to go back to his show. What does that mean? Bro, I don't know. I've gotten some messages about it. What do you think? They tell me? Just because I work for the same company, think, hey, Parker, we're just letting you know what we're going to do about the whole Dan Bongino thing. You know, it's been like 15 minutes. We better clue you. They're not going to tell me. I'm going to find out like 5 minutes before I tell you. That's all I can tell you. And like, we're friends with Jim Verdi. He's and his producer, who's now producing the Vince Show. You can hear on our sister station, KLIF. He's a local. He lives up in Flower Mound. Do you know that? Yeah, you probably knew that. All right, so back to the reason we're all here today. James, why are you sitting in for Joe Pags? Well, Donald Trump gave an address to the nation today, covered a lot of issues here. And if we replay Joe Pags tonight, it would be his show is recorded before the speech. And so we wanted to give you just up to the minute coverage of this. And the only way we could do that is to go live. So I've just volunteered to do a little bit of extra work because I love you so much. That's all it is. I just love you so much. All right, let's get to the part about where he talks about immigration and the border.
We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer.
All right, so of all the criticism I've had for him through this entire speech, I have no criticism for that. I think that's spot on. Well, to me, as much as I complain about how similar the parties are and how their economic policies overlap so well, this is one area where, okay, I'll buy it. The parties are completely different when it comes to the border. One party wants the border to be open. They don't care if millions of people come here. They'll even give them some sort of asylum or refugee status and start hooking them up with benefits. And the other side doesn't want that. Clearly, one policy is better for the country than the other. Nope. Well, this is what, when we were talking to Elvis from Memphis, again, doubt that's his real name, but when we were talking to him, how do you continue to support the Republican Party if they don't codify these changes, if they don't codify the DOGE cuts or the cuts to the Department of Education, if they don't codify a secure border and the other, accomplishments that have been made, if they're all just going to get undone in 3 years, then this was all for nothing. All right, the next clip I highlighted for you was Trump talking about reverse migration.
For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens.
Is that true? That's a pretty amazing stat if it's true. I can feel like right now a bunch of people in Frisco are just nodding their heads in their car. Right now, can you just like it's affecting the wind pattern? So many people in Frisco are nodding their head to that. Well, there's the weird conflation that goes on when we talk about immigration, where you'll hear stats where they like to put legal and illegal immigrants together. Like, well, immigrants commit less crime than the native-born population. Okay, well, what about just illegal immigrants? What if you separate out the ones who are minding their p's and q's because they could be deported at any time? You know, so I've not to be nitpicky, isn't it supposed to be South Indian or is it East Indian or South Asian? I think is what we're supposed to say. I like the term Desi, by the way, because that encompasses it's the same ethnotype across Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh because they are one people. They were just split by religion after they got their independence from Britain and yada yada. Gandhi. What Desi? I know, right? It reminds me of Desi Arnaz from I Love Lucy. But yeah, those that's a great example of how no that can't be true that it all 100% of the jobs went to Americans. No, that's so why does he say that? It must be real frustrating to be one of those full on Trump deranged critics. Next thing I pulled for you here. Let's see. We did the border invasion. We did reverse migration. Here we go. Somalians in Minnesota both got a swing.
Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it. For so long as before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function.
Okay, now on this, I think all that's correct, but now I'm concerned about what you keep bringing up here. If we don't codify some of these changes in laws, it'll go back to business as usual the second this guy is out of office. And what's to keep the next group from, exploiting our welfare system as soon as the big guys left? I hear you. Coming up next, we'll hear his little exit. He did a pretty solid outro there, but let's dig into that a little bit. What was missing from the speech tonight? If you want to add to that, 800-288-9227. But you'll hear from myself, James Parker, and my guest, Chris Putnam, on what we would have liked to have seen added to Donald Trump's address to the nation tonight that happened at 8 o'clock. I'm James Parker with Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. This is special coverage of Trump's address to the nation on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Merry Christmas, fellow Texans. This is the Sort of James Show. I'm James Parker, doing special programming from WBAP in place of Joe Pags tonight because we are dealing with the address Trump gave the nation at 8 o'clock. And it wasn't one big thing that he dropped on us. It was a lot of little things. This is a cluster bomb. But there was a lot of meat on the bone here. This wasn't just a campaign stop. He talked about some policies, and we've gone through a lot of them. You know, we've already covered his thoughts on immigration, education, the military, peace being made across the earth, prices, wages, the economy, military Christmas bonus, the cost of drugs, TrumpRx.gov, healthcare money direct to citizens instead of insurance, energy policy, mortgage crisis, the border invasion, reverse migration, Somalians, Minnesota. So he covered a whole lot, and then he finished with this little outro. And then myself and my guest, Chris Putnam from Dallas Express, we're going to do a tough exercise here and say what was missing from the speech that we would have liked to have heard. So here's the outro. This is the last, not even 1 minute.
There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
All right, now, Chris, I never expect to get what I want, everything I want from a politician's speech, because I want some guy to go up there, hey, I'm president of the United States. We're going to return to the gold standard. We're going to cut out all the entitlements. We're going to go back to the restrictions for the federal government laid out in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. And the first thing we're going to do is balance the budget. And that's never happened in my lifetime. But it's been closer than this before. We used to at least give lip service to balancing the budget, or in like the 90s with the contract with America, there was talk of a balanced budget amendment. Now there's not even talk of balancing the budget. So that's the one thing I think was really missing from this. Of all the stuff I liked in there, the fiscal insanity is going to continue, is my worst takeaway from this. Yeah, and I think you're making a good point there in the fact that we wouldn't be polarized over what was in the library at our children's schools if we were all going to private schools. Because then you could just pick and choose. If you don't like, the kids being taught about sex stuff and secret conversations when they're teachers and when they're only 7 years old, then you can go to the grooming school if you want. Me and my kids will go to the non-grooming school and we'll see who gets better results. But we wouldn't have anything to fight about there if we would just privatize and decentralize a lot of these issues. And I know that sounds like such a simple issue, but almost impossible to implement. Right. Politically, it's impossible. All right. This is Gina in Hearst. You're on WBAP with James Parker and my guest Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. Hey, Gina.
Hi. I had to take you off speakerphone. My problem, I'm a Trump supporter, with almost without qualification. But he lacks one thing, and that's understanding of how idiots, how the American people basically function in kind of in kind of an idiocy in that his use of hyperbole, and I know it's born of his enthusiasm, but every time he says, well, this is the best that's ever happened in the history of the world, you lose people right there because they're not capable of analyzing what he's talking about, and they just immediately turn away from it.
Well, it sounds like a salesman, and that's because he is a salesman. And I've read Art of the Deal where he talks about it. He calls that tact, because this isn't how he talks to friends when you're sitting around the table at dinner. This is how he talks in public. He calls it truthful hyperbole, and it's sort of a growth on. I don't know if you ever read Art of the Deal, but it's sort of built on the foundation of the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was sort of that, but he took it to just a more opulent level, for lack of a.
Right, but when it's in this milieu, when you're dealing in politics and you're trying to influence policy and get people to support you, the average American out here doesn't think. They just don't analyze things, and they'll take what he's saying at face value and just say, well, that's not possible. And it's that's the one thing about him that disturbs me. And I understand where you're coming from. But I just don't have a lot of faith in the average American out here in terms of their ability to be realistic and analytical. So that's pretty much mostly what I wanted to say. And I really don't want him to attack anything on the land in Venezuela. While he's out in the middle of the ocean, that's one thing. But then that's going to bring up the whole concept of imperialism again, which, we hasn't really been discussed for a long time.
All right.
And it's exactly what he's fighting with Putin.
Chris, address that part about the hyperbole. Trump talks in hyperbole. Well, there's two aspects of that I find kind of abrasive. It's number one, who's to say that simple people or dumb people or below average intelligence people, who's to say they don't find that more persuasive? Wouldn't you be more persuaded if you're some easily led automaton by hyperbolic language? Right? They kind of like it. The other pushback I have on that, Gina from Hearst, is that the guy that talks in all hyperbole and everything's the best and everything's the greatest, and he's this big exploding volcano of machismo and whatnot. That's the kind of guy that you need up there. So when he gets shot in the ear and then he has to go down to the ground and he has the Secret Service agents, is he made of the same tough stuff that would get up and tell people to fight? Or is he I imagine there's quite a few people in America, if they got shot and they could go home and just live out the rest of their life as a billionaire who is already president, who definitely doesn't need this. I think a lot of people wouldn't get up and continue it. You need a guy who's kind of an a-hole. You need a guy who's kind of an obstinate or stubborn, kind of mulish character. And you got to take the good with the bad. Like when he wants to bag on Rob Reiner after he gets murdered. Well, I just take that as, I kind of expected that. That's who Donald Trump is. That's how he operates. And having a guy that's that bullish is not real cute if you're hosting a dinner party. But he's president of the United States of America. And overall, I think that's more good than bad. You got 30 seconds. Yeah. Chris, Got to run. And he's not imperialist because we haven't even invaded Canada. And we could take them over in a week and a half if we wanted to. All right, check out Chris's work at Dallas Express, dallasexpress.com. There's an app as well. Coming up next on The James Show, we'll continue coverage of the Donald Trump address to the nation. 800-288-9227 if you want to jump in on the conversation. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, Merry Christmas, fellow Texans. It's the James Show, sort of, on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I'm sort of your host, James Parker. Oh, you don't have to clap for me out of pity. But we're doing special programming today because Donald Trump gave an address to the nation at 8 o'clock, and we wanted to give you live coverage in the aftermath of that. And look, part of what we were expecting didn't happen, and I'll be the first to admit I made a terrible prediction on the James Show today. I was expecting this to be about Venezuela because I was just remembering it was just like, what? You go back in time 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump slipped this little factoid in the end of a question or an answer here, and I thought that's what this was going to be about, Venezuela.
Every vote we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives.
That's right.
And if you look at our numbers, the drugs coming in through sea are down 91%. I'm surprised there's 9%. You want to? I don't know who's doing the 9%, but it's down 91, and we're going to start very soon on land, and I'm sure you're thrilled to hear that.
But that kind of makes me feel better. I don't want war with Venezuela. I don't want a ground invasion or an amphibious assault or people parachuting in. I want to stay as far away from escalating Venezuela as possible. We didn't get that. In fact, I don't think there was hardly any mention of Venezuela in the entire speech, and he covered a lot. He covered immigration and education and wages and inflation. He mentioned a military Christmas bonus. He mentioned TrumpRx.gov to help with drug costs, and a little bit more about healthcare, a little bit more about energy, a little bit about mortgages. Look at that. That's a lot of issues covered there. None of it was Venezuela. So I find that kind of heartwarming, but also the fact that there's not like one big focus of the speech lets me know that this feels like he was just generally trying to correct the record to an audience that wouldn't normally hear this info. And that's my best guess. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. My next guest is the guy who filled in for me on Thanksgiving, Eric Inboden. Welcome back to the James Show, sort of.
Good evening, America.
Good evening. Yeah. So, Eric, in this speech, I was expecting one big takeaway. I didn't get that. I got a lot of small takeaways. What was your observation? Did you get a big takeaway from this?
Not really. Besides the normal hyperbole and speaking in grandiose terms, I expected that. And I kind of like it whenever I hear it. But not a big takeaway. I really wanted to hear something about Venezuela. I really did. I really wanted to hear where that was going. I'm with you, James. I don't want any more escalation, but it's definitely got my attention. But yeah, one thing that I thought was a little bit interesting was the use of the graphic organizers, and I was wondering if where he was showing the numbers, the blue numbers and the red numbers always negative. Sometimes it seemed like it was just a little bit obscure where exactly what was being said right there. The number, I wasn't quite sure what was being said. So it was kind of confusing. It was faster than I expected, 15 minutes, no more than 20. I don't know. But it was just a real quick kind of chest thumping.
Well, then let me ask you this. If there wasn't one big driving message here, then we got to question the timing. Anybody would like to get in front of the media, in front of the American people, and tell their side of the story on all the big issues of the day. But that's something that you would want to do every day. Why today? Any thoughts on that?
It's interesting that it's timed right now during right just before the State of the Union address in January. It's kind of like he said, I'm going to get out there and do something real quick and simple. I'm going to talk to the American public. I'm going to get my message out. I'm going to highlight my successes before it becomes a political spectacle inside the walls of Congress during the State of the Union address. And so it felt like him kind of getting in front of a story, possibly. I don't know, but or just taking this opportunity to have it be about nothing else, no other type of pomp and circumstance around it. Just him in front of the American flag and some Christmas decorations, and talking about things that we never have seen before.
Well, and this seems kind of odd to me. I have to sort of get out of my own shell because for, people who listen to talk radio and definitely people who host talk radio shows, it just seems so odd that after knowing this guy this intimately for now 9, almost 10 years, I guess, if you count the primary season for the 2016 election, that anyone's mind can be changed on this guy about anything. But apparently he does because his poll numbers still move.
Yeah, he is still moving the numbers. And what I thought was interesting was his, and this might be kind of the biggest takeaway, is where are the funds going to come from to support his new RX program that he's, what is it, TrumpRx.com? What was the
TrumpRx.gov. And you know what? We shouldn't really assume that everybody was listening to every second that we did. Here's the cut from where Trump mentioned that in his speech today.
The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, TrumpRx.gov.
All right, so that was just the vehicle by which people could access this new favored nation trade status. And I got to admit, I don't know everything what's going on there.
I don't either, but I think it's really funny that he came up with an RX plan that's called Trump RX. It's par for the course, and I'm actually in love with it. I think it's great, but I wonder how that's going to be funded, or what that's going to look like, or what that end result of that is going to be. Is it going to be another Obamacare? Is it going to fall to the wayside? Is it another government program that I guess we shouldn't necessarily be funding? I mean, I don't know where that stands, but I definitely don't feel comfortable with more tax dollars going to a new government program, especially in the post-Doge era, where we were supposed to be entering this term for this president with the idea that the government was going to be cut and that they were cutting jobs and they were getting rid of waste. But right now, it appears that maybe there might be a ramp up. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm not sure if that was new tax dollars going to a new plan, because just before that, he had talked about cutting the cost of drugs with trade policy. Let me play that, because this is what led up to the TrumpRx.gov.
There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called Most Favored Nation, and no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through.
Yeah, so then he gets in the part about TrumpRx.gov. So it's not price reductions because we're going to take money from the guy listening to us right now and give it to someone who's buying drugs. It's going to be cheaper drugs because we are now re-importing them, or we're punishing the drug companies who want to give us a higher price. It sounds something other than a subsidy.
Manufacturing the drugs domestically, possibly. I mean, there's ways to drop the prices. I'm just wondering if it's another funded agency, and it's something that that rubs me the wrong way. As a libertarian, I'm like, come on, let's keep shrinking this thing. But,
All right, we're going to hit pause, and Eric in Bowdoin will continue with us on the other side of the break. I'm James Parker, sitting in for the Joe Pag Show as we bring you special coverage of Trump's address to the nation here on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the Sort of James Show. I'm James Parker, sitting in for the spot that's normally held by the Joe Pags Show, but we're calling an audible here on WBAP tonight, and we're giving you special live coverage of the address to the nation by your president, Donald Trump. Joining me, Eric Inboden. You last heard him filling in for me over the Thanksgiving break here. But look, I think the second most important speech we got today comes from Gary Busey, who, Eric, he wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Hey, it's Gary Busey, and I have got a great Christmas present for you. Listen to this. Honk! Honk! That's what a goose sounds like when they're flying. They let you know they're up there. Honk! Honk! You get a bunch of geese together. Honk, honk, honk. They're honking in the air.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that puts me in the Christmas spirit, Eric. I just wanted to share that with you. And
oh my gosh, honking at geese, is that what Gary Busey is spun off this planet? And it's not like a recent development. It is just, I think it's just been a state of being for him for at least 40 years.
I don't know. I think you're being a little dismissive here, because I think Gary Busey's teaching us all a lesson if we'll just open our minds a little bit, because I've gone my entire life hearing geese flying over, and yeah, I can hear them honking, and sometimes there's multiple geese honking, but I didn't know that was my Christmas gift, and I didn't know that they were trying to talk to me. And so it really opened my mind, because I mean, Gary Busey's just on a level that maybe we're just not keeping up with him.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm trying to keep up. I found it funny. I laughed out loud. I still have some tears in my eyes from that. But I don't know if I actually needed to be instructed or get gifted anything on how the geese sound in this time of year.
Well, if you weren't so damn closed-minded and ideologically biased, maybe you could understand the complex mind of Gary Busey. You know what? I'm going to be most interested to see how this military Christmas bonus plays in the media, because even for myself, who's a pretty staunch fiscal conservative guy, it's really hard to complain about this
because of tariffs, along with the just passed one big beautiful bill. Tonight, I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776.
Okay, so what do you think about the Christmas bonus?
Well, I mean, he tried to bury the lead with the numbers and then got mixed up a little bit at the beginning, but then he got it back on target. And you know what? That was the best part of the speech, actually. I mean, if we have the income from tariffs and it's available to give to the armed services and to the
soldiers
that are defending our country and contributing to the defense of our freedom. Absolutely. Why not? I mean, most people in the military have never, very infrequently have they received a bonus at Christmas, right? I mean, maybe never. Do they get bonuses in the military? So this is a great opportunity, seeing your boss stand in front of you. Imagine you were at the Christmas party, right? And your boss stood up and said, "Hey, I'm giving everybody $2,000 this year for Christmas," and you've never gotten bonuses before. Imagine how you'd feel right now. You'd be like through the roof, right? High-fiving your wife, calling friends, texting. I mean, it's. I think that's worthy money spent. The defense of our country and the people who serve our country deserve more than what they already get. And if we're going to top it off with the cherry at the end of the year because we're doing well with tariffs, fine by me.
All right. Well, Eric, let me push back on that. Not that I disagree with you, but when you say I can't think of any reason why they shouldn't get this money, well, because we don't have that money, and the tariffs may be bringing in money, but we're still operating at a nearly $2 trillion deficit. And so until we have a surplus, giving them extra money means we're going to have to print more money, which means we're all getting a pay cut. This is all coming out of our backside. So this isn't money that's going to come from tariffs. This is money that's going to come out of our backside. Now, if we didn't have the tariff money, it would be even worse. But this is a little bit less of a beating for our annual pay cut that we get that they call inflation. And again, that's not enough to
take. I'm willing to take the hit, though. Like there's certain things that are worthy of the penalty, right? And the penalty is that it's may cost me a little bit more money. But if we're continuing down a path in our country where we are continuously cutting unnecessary programs, continuously slashing the budget, continuously managing the deficit, if we are in a slight surplus at the end of the year, surplus meaning more money from our tax revenue from tariffs than what we had previously. Definitely not a surplus because we are in a deficit. But if we have that little bit of a annual surplus, and we can give it back to anybody in our country versus all the other wasted areas in our country, that's fine. I think it's a small price to pay for a really, really big reward.
Well, and this is something that comes up when people like to try and catch you in a catch-22. Like, I thought you were a fiscal conservative. I thought you wanted government to be smaller, but I don't hear you complaining about cutting the military. Well, you know what? I would like for there to be military cuts, but I complain about that last because it's actually something that they're supposed to be doing in the Constitution. Right. I'm more adamant about cuts to the Department of Education or, welfare and food stamps and health care and all that stuff because we're not supposed to be doing that to begin with. And so that's sort of how I balance that argument.
No, I'm in total agreement with you right there. I mean, but back to the veterans, or not veterans, back to our servicemen and our current operating military. I mean, if we can take care of them, even though I am a fiscal conservative, and I do feel like that there are way too many programs out there that we should not be bearing the weight of as taxpayers. We should not be penalized. We should not be harmed by having our money taken away from us, right, to fund programs that do no benefit to us. But the military does a benefit to us. Now, I'm like what you said, like that you could see places where cuts can come in the military. Trust me, I believe that we should pull many of our bases from foreign soils and have floating flotillas out in the middle of the ocean, ready to strike anywhere in the world at any time. But we do not need these operated bases. There's some that we do. There's some absolutely, but there are others that are less strategic. We need to pull those. We need to close those down, put our military out in the ocean, and just protect our borders in our country.
Yeah, well, whatever the number that we need, it's smaller than 600, and that's what we have now is over 600 overseas installations for the U.S. military. We're talking with Eric Inboden, and we're going to continue covering Trump's speech. Coming up next, and by the way,
said it.
Yeah, I almost said it, and I hate it. I just read it on Facebook so much because you put it up there, you punk. But coming up next, we're gonna
Facebook.
All right, we're gonna cover the economic issues that were addressed because some of this does affect you. And if you have anything to add to the conversation, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the Sort of James Show. I'm James Parker, sitting in for the Joe Pag Show because we're giving you special coverage on WBAP of Trump's address to the nation. We don't get this very often when a sitting president wants to clear the decks and have all the networks run his speech live. And usually when we do, there's some sort of main event that's happening. We're bombing Iraq or we're invading Venezuela is kind of what I was expecting this time around. But we didn't get that. What we did get was a laundry list of all the issues of the day, and he addressed both of them, and it was meat on the bone. This wasn't just hyperbole and subjective complaining or whining or even bragging. There was a little bit of that for the first 3 minutes, but the last 15 minutes, it was just going step by step. But still, he was talking in his hyperbolic style for sure. But we did learn some new things. We learned that there's a bonus that's going to be paid to soldiers, $1,776 to active duty soldiers. We also learned there's a new website that's going to be available in January, TrumpRx.gov, which could be the solution for people looking for cheaper drugs. Now, I went to TrumpRx.gov. It's already up, but you can't click through and start finding medications just yet. I guess it goes live in January, but there's still some summaries and stuff you can look at on TrumpRx.gov. Continuing with me is my guest, Eric Inboden. You heard him last on the James Show, filling in for me during the Thanksgiving holiday. And Eric, I wanted to focus over here on energy policy. This is something where, generally speaking, I have agreed with him, and I think I like the tenor of this. But I think I would also like more information.
Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds, as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden.
Okay, so that's a legit complaint there, but I feel like his backlash isn't going to go far enough against this stuff.
I mean, talking about energy, I mean, the $1.99 gas, already I am seeing great gas prices in my neighborhood. $2.50, $2.49, $1.99, we're on our way. We're on our way. But I think the crux of his message there is that it's just another step forward to making things in our country feel like they did, when we were growing up, James, when we were in our 20s. It just felt like there was an ample amount of everything for everybody. And then suddenly, it felt like it when COVID hit, and then just after COVID, and then just this weird tightening that kept burning you, and your electricity soaring through the roof. The cost of gas in your vehicle, it got up to almost $4 at one point. It was ridiculous. I mean, but now it feels like, okay, we're kind of returning back to, our the way things should be. And the way things were when we were growing up as kids. Well, I mean, when I first got my first car, it was 99 cents a gallon. So that's where it was back then. But
yeah, I remember that.
I don't think we'll see that again.
No, definitely not.
But I'm eager. You know what? Let's do more. Let's put more into the coal mining industry. Let's drill more. We use petroleum for so many things in our world. And we have so much of it on the planet. Why don't we put it to good use and continue moving forward with it? Especially if we have it domestically, where we can just get it from our own resources that we have nearby us right now. Which is happening. And I think it's driving down the cost. And I think that's a major win for this presidency.
Well, my concern about this arena is not, I don't disagree with what he said. I just wish he would go a little further in that. In two arenas. Number one, the cuts that he's already made, he's cut windmill and solar programs. That's fine. But if it's just an executive order and something that can come back as soon as he's gone, I find that falls short. I would like to see it go a little further, though. Why don't they outlaw the ability for government to pick and choose energy production industries? Why don't we say, not only are we not going to be funding windmills and solar power plants and whatever other green ideas we have, how about we outlaw the idea of government doing that? Let's take another step. Because look, before we even experimented in this, you could make a case, well, look, this isn't us, picking winners and losers. We're naturally migrating to this new technology, and this is just the American government kind of boosting us in that direction, like they did with the space program. Sure, we have private space flight now, but we wouldn't have got here as fast if not for NASA, or at least that's the argument that could be made. But in this one, we're not ever going to transfer over to electric cars because government told us to. They've been goosing us for 20 years now, and there's still only, 3% of the cars on the road? So we've spent trillions and trillions.
The rate of adoption has to get to 10x benefit for the consumer, and it's nowhere near that at all. So the electric car thing is a slow burn, but if it gets to a 10x benefit to the consumer, it'll go into full adoption real fast.
What do you mean by 10x benefit? Explain that.
Like 10x benefit to the cost of the consumer. So, for example, they have the technology in place to put iPhones together, right? But the cost to the consumer would have been way too high when they had that tech. With the tech that they had. As the tech improved, they could make an iPhone that was available financially to pretty much all people. And I'm branding iPhone, but I mean smartphone, where the technology was available to all people, and within a very short period of time, it was fully adopted. And that's what has to happen for electric cars to be fully adopted. It has to be it has to be the same effect that happened to horses in the early 1900s to the internal combustion engine in the automobile, where in one decade, basically the entire horse industry collapsed. They were eating horses. Horses were touted as cereal foods. I mean, because they had too many horses because everybody adopted vehicles. And it has to be some type of economic event like that for electronic vehicles to take place. The tech's not there, but the convergence of techs, like with the smartphones, where you could get the screens that would work, that wouldn't break, and the battery's small enough, and the processor's small enough to where it could fit in your hand to make it touchscreen. When all of those convergence of technologies all came together, the cost came down. Because the price of those technologies came down, it became consumer available, and it was 10x the benefit of having a line plugged into your wall, and it became rapid adoption. And that's what has to happen for that. But speaking of being on the road in an electric vehicle or any vehicle, that matter, and solar power, wind power, have you ever seen how big those windmill blades are on the big trailers that they pull them on? Have you ever driven right next to one of those?
Oh, yeah, those things are gargantuan.
They're so huge. Can you imagine the cost of just moving that thing? Not the thing itself, just the cost to ship it into place. I mean, it's got to be tens and tens of thousands of dollars for every one of those blades that go out there. And those things are, I mean, they're massive, almost impressively massive. You're like, wow, that's really a big blade.
There's no way that those things are generating more money than they cost, generating more electricity to pay for their own costs. And we had the craziest example for the few years I was down in New Orleans. They were bragging because they were going to build a new solar plant. It was from the Obama stimulus bill. And they were saying this power plant can make a megawatt of energy every hour. And just a few miles up the river was a nuclear power plant. Still is the Waterford nuclear power plant. It's economic output. Now, when the solar plant was on full power, high noon, not a cloudy day, and it was working at its peak, the nuclear power plant was capable of making 1,024 times the energy output as the solar power plant, and it was on a smaller footprint of real estate. So it was that comical. So yes, for one solar for the solar power to equal the generation capacity of the nuclear, you would need 1,024 of them. That's how silly the green energy scam has gotten. All right, we'll continue with Eric Inboden as we're breaking down Donald Trump's address to the nation that happened at 8 o'clock. If you have anything you want to add to the conversation, jump on in. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker, sitting in for the Joe Pags Show on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there. Merry Christmas. I'm your host, James Parker, sitting in for the Joe Pags Show. You can normally hear me on WBAP weekdays 2 to 5. If that doesn't fit into your schedule, check out the podcast, wherever you're already listening to podcasts. Joining me here, Eric Inboden. You last heard him on the James Show, filling in for me over the Thanksgiving holidays. Thank you for that, by the way. I thought you did pretty good. Well done. Round of applause for your filling in abilities.
I want to say a big thank you to. No, I'm joking. Charles Osgood has a poem where pretty good is like basically one of the biggest insults you can say to somebody, because pretty good is pretty bad. If you look at the span of all time and all things, when things are just pretty good and not excellent, then they actually end up being pretty bad.
If you did bad, I wouldn't have mentioned it at all, sir. Okay, so I want to talk about, in this last segment we have here to break this down, a couple of things I was expecting. Number one, this is Donald Trump talking about Venezuela 2 weeks ago that had me speculating on the James Show this afternoon, the James Show proper, that there was going to be a Venezuela component to this.
Every boat we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives.
That's right.
And if you look at our numbers, the drugs coming in through sea are down 91%. I'm surprised there's 9% here. I don't know who's doing the 9%, but it's down 91, and we're going to start very soon on land, and I'm sure you're thrilled to hear that.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big number here, because drug overdoses in America, it's about 80,000 last year. It kind of peaked in 2023 at 110,000, and we've already knocked over more than 5 boats. So I guess we've saved all the drug overdoses for this year and next year. They should be 0 if that number is correct. Not that I'm pro drug boat. I'm not in the pro drug boat fashion. I'm just trying to crunch some numbers over here. So surprised there wasn't a mention of Venezuela in there, though.
Yeah, you know what? I was looking for that. You know, James, at one point in time in my storied life, I actually worked in Venezuela, Caracas, Venezuela, for a month, and it was only supposed to be for 2 weeks.
What year was this?
1999.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. In 1999, I worked at Tony Roma's in Arlington, Texas, and I was studying Spanish as my undergraduate degree, and I had just gotten back from a study abroad in Mexico. So I was speaking Spanish around the restaurant and to all the cooks, and I was communicating and translating, and some international managers came in to be trained on some of the things that we were doing, because they were franchising the restaurants out all over South America and Central America and the Caribbean. And they came and trained, and I helped them train, and they invited me to come to Caracas, Venezuela to open a store. So I was only supposed to go for 2 weeks to open the store, and I was while I was there, they had the Vargas tragedy. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but
I don't.
Oh, you have?
No, I don't know this.
The Vargas tragedy is it was these terrible floods that caused these massive landslides that killed over 10,000 people. The only natural disaster that's been bigger than that is the one in the Indian Ocean on December 26th of whatever the year that was, where they had the big tsunamis and that just like took out whole islands. Anyways, I was there whenever that happened, so we got stuck. We couldn't fly out. And I worked for an extra 2 weeks and eventually flew out in a military from a military base, because the people I was with were really connected. But,
whoa!
Well, yeah, they were. But hold on. This was early Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was still being celebrated by all the people down there, including the wealthy, including those who had different beliefs than him. It was like a moment of prosperity at the very beginning of his terrible reign, I guess. It was only towards the mid-2000s that things really took a weird change, and he started changing constitutions and changing the structure of the government down there, and seizing the wealth of the people that lived in Venezuela, including the people that I worked for. The people that brought me down there were real wealthy and huge supporters of Hugo Chavez. Fast forward 5 years, and he seized their wealth, and they had to flee the country penniless. I'm not sure where they are now, but that was the last I heard of them. And it's just another example of how a terrible economic system can really trash a really, really beautiful country.
Yeah, it happens every time it's tried. The other thing that I thought was missing, I thought maybe there would be some mention of drug policy other than prescription drug prices, because There was a news report that he was considering reclassifying weed. This is WFAA.
President Trump next executive order may loosen restrictions on marijuana. Mr. Trump says he is weighing reclassifying cannabis to a Schedule III drug.
That didn't get mentioned today either.
Yeah, I know that one kind of slipped by. From a libertarian perspective, I was quite satisfied to hear about this rescheduling on the docket, but it seems to have kind of creeped into the back row and kind of slunched over or something. Who knows? Let's see what happens. You know, I mean, if you can make it Tylenol, then that's great. You know, I mean, make it for everybody. Let everybody have the freedom to choose what they want to put in their body when they want to put it in their body. We shouldn't regulate it, but you know, we should find a revenue stream from it.
Well,
I'm not saying tax it ridiculously, but I'm saying definitely find some way to build a revenue stream that goes towards things like paying down the deficit or working in a surplus each and every year as a government and as a business that our government is.
All right, Eric, we're going to leave the audience with the 2025 rewrite of Baby, It's Cold Outside.
I really can't stay.
Okay.
I got to go away.
That's fine.
This evening has been so very nice.
Okay, great. Good. I thought it was good too.
My mother will start to worry.
You live with your mom?
My father will be pacing the floor.
Wait, how old are you?
So really I'd better scurry.
The app says you're 29.
Well, maybe just a half a drink more.
No, you need to get out of my house. I'm freaking out.
Might think,
what are they gonna think?
say what's in this drink.
She made the drink, neighbors. She made the drink.
I wish I knew how.
What? Oh my God.
Break this spell.
Oh my God, I'm going to jail.
I ought to say no.
No, this can't be happening.
At least I'm gonna say that I tried.
You haven't even moved. You're not even trying to leave.
I really can't stay.
I'm calling your ass an
Well,
Uber.
baby, it's cold outside.
Alexi will be here in 2 minutes. Please wait outside.
All right, thanks for letting me invade Joe Pack's space. If you want to hear my regular show, weekdays from 2 to 5, or you can check out the James Show podcast. Also, if you look for James Parker, the James Show on social media, I got all kinds of funny videos and clips and highlights. So Facebook, Twitter /X or YouTube. Look me up, give me a good follow. I'll make it worth your while. Thank you very much for hanging out. This has been special coverage of Trump's address to the nation on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.